Fire Legolas, probably the unit that has been placed most times in my comment section when I asked which unit do you really like. They mostly do mention this guy. And why is that? Well, skill 1, we have the skill 1 that's the same as all of them, the RNG 2 to 5 hits out there. The S2, which is going to be attack power increase and speed increase and gain the additional turn. And then the skill 3 is where it gets interesting. Absorbs the attack bar by 15 with a 40 chance. We do go that up to a 60. And then steal 1 beneficial effect with a 40 chance. Whenever you attack the enemy, increase your activation by 20% per beneficial effect granted on yourself. Which is interesting right there because we do get 2 buffs in pretty much all the time because the cooldowns are that you pretty much full rotate that. So we're gonna add that all the way to a 100% chance. The big issue that I have with this unit, however, is sure, it's gonna be 100% on these two and then 100% on a 15 bar absorb, which is really nice. But we are looking at a 2-time hit or a 5-time hit. And the big issue is that is a 30 attack bar absorb, or that is going to be a 75 attack bar absorb. The gap between one and the other is so incredibly huge that I do think that I'm not really going to be liking it that much for that reason. I've seen people use this in Siege. I've seen people use this in RTA. I think it's a little bit of an RTA unit. People do compare it to a Lauren. However, Lauren does also provide Death Break and heal blocks and slows. This thing provides no debuffs whatsoever. It's just strip and absorb. So locking down one unit, probably really good at it. But locking down a whole team, that is going to be difficult. So let's see what the win rate looks like in RTA. If we're looking at the win rate in Punisher, we're looking at a 34%. If we're looking at the win rate in Guardian, we're looking at a 44%, and in Guardian 3, a 45%. Sure, it doesn't have that much of pick rate, but it does have higher pick rate than some of the other LDs, which are actually do showcasing a little bit of a 50 rate already. So for me, the big issue that is seated on this unit is sitting in that skill 1. If his skill 1 was a little bit more consistent, let's say that it always shoots 3 arrows, but it can go 4 or 5, but lower rate than the 50, I think it would be good for the whole family because none of the family is like crazy OP at the moment. And I think they could kind of use it where they always hit 3 and then they could go towards 5 with the RNG factor of, let's say, maybe a 30% or 40% or anything like that. Him having the base of 30% absorb is maybe not as good. So for builds, I definitely do think people would put additional damage artifacts on him, probably go for a crit rate 4 on him. Would not really go crit damage on the 4. But let's see where he's used and how he's used that way. Personally, I don't really want to give him a try on my comp because I think he would heavily tank my ranking. He would be best into units that are heavy on immunity. So I could see him being accounted to Wusa, but the issue is Wusa is the wrong element. Veladjul, definitely an option right there. Maybe into a Lima, well, it's paired with a Lima right now. So let's see how that would work. So we do give ourselves the buffs. We do go for strips and absorb. That is some nasty strip and absorb. That's actually not a really bad start right there. I think the only issue is, like, sure, you're locking down one unit right now, but do you have enough value in the long run? Now we get our cleanses in. In the end, yep, okay, we do get those skills in. Skill 2 doesn't really do too much. We can buff again. Where are we going to place that? Good absorbs. Like, as I mentioned, it's really good for locking down one target, but it's not really doing the damage while doing so. Like, that's definitely the bit of issue. It's not really doing too much to the AoE kind of style. It doesn't really participate in the fight for doing a lot of damage. It's just trying to lock down one unit, which it's decent to good at, but that unit in the end still was able to get a turn over there. Also right there, if you get some resistance in, you're not pushing back too much in the first place. So if you have a 2-hit and one of the 2 hits is resisted, you only gain like a low bit of bar, and that's where the enemy gets an opening right there. Sure, we can still cleanse that off. We can still push that back. Good pushbacks because of the speed. No, because of the speed, we don't increase. So this unit is super heavy on the RNG because if he had more of a multi-hit on that, he would have actually taken it out. Also, I would say if you're putting it on crit rate 4, you probably want to be trying to get your hits in more on death break scenarios. And his whole team is showing 0 death breaks. So where he was looking at the upper hand in this fight, if he had any unit that actually did do a little bit more than just pushbacks, I think he would have had a better fight at it. In all honesty, I think he almost would have had a better fight at it if he just had a Lauren in there, because Lauren would have actually just simply given death break, and then on those death breaks you can actually just do damage. And I think that's his biggest issue right now. He's not really having that damage output. He's not really having that wow factor. Like, sure, you kind of absorb, you kind of push back, you kind of still make a decent fight at it when there's fewer units on the field. So therefore he might be a little bit more of a siege bruiser unit to lock someone out, rather than RTA, because in RTA there's maybe a little bit too many units on the field for him to actually work. Plus, it's still the RNG factor that, sure, you get your things in, but it's just not really getting the right rotation. If his skill 2 actually provided immunity on top of that, he would have had a lot more protection, but right now, yeah, it's just not really doing it. Okay, here we have a winning match, which is not that easy of a draft, so let's see how that would look like if he does get his victory in there. I think that's going to be stun towards the Gianna. Yep, do have to go for a stun towards the Gianna. We don't... Yeah, that's the thing. That one is more dangerous. I would have probably put the Sierra in the scroll trap if I were him. Mainly because of proc potential on this, which is always kind of dangerous. But he wants to get as much damage in as possible. Is an option as well. But yeah, I think the Piranha just takes over this whole match right now. It is nice that you also steal the buffs, which is kind of nice. At least I'm pretty sure it's a steal, right? Yep, it is a steal. He got the attack buff from that. So at least I think so. It was not his own, right? No, I don't think so. So yeah, the steal makes it pretty nice. So you have your protection from stealing immunity if there is something to steal. But then you also kind of have to spread your target. Every time that you hit something, you probably have to hit something else every time. So into a light pony, I can see this unit being really good, because light pony is pretty bad into the additional damage, just damage single target flowing in, because the pony tries to heal, but is a really bad healer for a single target. It's a good AoE healer, or semi-good AoE healer, but it's a really bad healer for single target. So single target damage, such as Junos, tend to really mess it up, and I think this guy, especially stealing all of those buffs every time, could do a pretty good work on that. But in general sense, I definitely do think he needs a little bit of a buff, a little bit of an up to actually be strong. Here we have a good Bruiser matchup, so let's see how that would work if it is placed in a Bruiser matchup with too much pushbacks, because that's also the thing. I think it's a relative easy job to deny him turns. So we do get our stun in over there. Well, that also does mean that we can remove that. I would not really recommend Pheromones on Will. I way rather see a Pheromones on a Nemesis, because that just gives you a chance to get more bar in. But in this case, cleanse block, and we do have all of those things in. So bomb over there. Okay, we're still fully ignoring this thing, but I think he is kind of ignorable, especially right now in this scenario. There's nothing to strip. If there's nothing to strip, like sure, you can go for the absorbs, but I think it loses a good bit of value because there is simply nothing to strip. And then we have some of these units simply taking over the match. If we do get a bomb in or a stun in on that Veramos, we get in both. Yeah, that's GG. He knows. I definitely do think that if he's in a Bruiser matchup, he can have the potential. But I think he definitely, out of all of the Legolases, he needs the buff on the skill 1 the most, because he's really prone and bound to his skill 1, doing a lot of value. And if you just get the 2 hit every time, that is just so much less value out of him right there. So, bit good of damage, but now we're just gonna get pushbacks in, and he's never gonna take a turn again because of just a Layla thing, an Event Hunt thing, and a Hilda thing. Or is it Hilda or is it Celeste? No, that's a Hilda, right? No, that is Celeste. Okay, he's dead already. So, yeah, that's just one of those things. He's dead. So then the big question, is he overrated and overhyped, or actually good? Well, I think he's overrated. He's definitely the one that needs the buff the most. He is an Awakening, which does help him for landing more on his passives. But then again, if you miss one of those and you just get a double hit in, you only get 15 bar and you're not really locking down anything. And I think that is the big issue. Also, in most cases, what I've seen in RTA matches thus far is you're trying to lock down one specific target. But that one specific target won't reapply more and more buffs every time. Because if the Wusa S3 just happened, you kind of want to shoot every individual target to steal that immunity every time to keep up your immunity. But also, since your S2 is a additional turn, you're kind of wasting that immunity that you just stole, or any buffs that you just stole. So that is kind of the fact where this being an additional turn doesn't really help him that much. If this was a passive of him just getting this every other turn or something, it would definitely help him a lot more than him having to take an active additional turn to actually get those skills in. And for the passive, I think the passive is fine. I think the skill 1 is the part which definitely would need the buff, because the skill 1, I would say that he has to be hitting 3 times, and then maybe the 4th and 5th hit are on like a 40% chance or a 35% extra chance, but at least has to be hitting 3 times so he can have some value already for having slightly worse RNG. Because sure, if this thing hits 5 all the time, you get 75 bar, you decrease 75 bar, then we're talking, then we're super strong. But the issue is, that is very low odds to happen, because then we're looking at like a 12.5%, which that's not much. That's like 1 in 8. It's not going to happen that much. And I guess it's also then a 1 in 4 to get the 4 hits. So sure, it can happen, but it's not going to happen that often. And when you need it most, you know what Countless RNG is going to say to you? It ain't going to happen. So for this unit right now, I would recommend not to use him too much in RTA. Maybe you can test him here and there in Siege. I can see him having some Siege value where I can lock down one target, especially if you're fighting like Tyrannys or something. But in RTA, I feel like he has too much struggle when he has to lock down 4 individual targets. So let's fight this matchup. It doesn't have too many buffs outside of the Tyrannys, but let's just see how it would look like. Okay, then I want some wind unit for you to target, and this thing could be an annoying thing, but we will see in a moment. Okay, so this is going to be the team. Still have to run those up. So we have the tank over here, and then we have some healing slash damage slash death break in the Ashura over there. Okay, so this is going to be the team. The build that I went for is still in the crit damage build because of the attack buff speed things. I think that he has still some value for actually putting some damage to him and not focusing too much on tanky slash bruiser stats. We're not maxed on the crit rate. We do have a good bit of accuracy, so more of an all-round bruiser build, and let's see how that works out. So we do get our skills in over here. In this case, we do, of course, do this. It is a little bit bad that we kind of waste our immunity right away, but we also will steal that immunity over there. So we do get a bit of hits in over there. Let's see if we can land this for you, because that could be pretty annoying. We do get resist on that, which could be a little bit of an interesting one. Okay, at least that skill is wasted, so that's good. And then we go for this skill right there. Okay, so let's see how much can we start lowering bar. It's also one of those things you cannot absorb what is not there, which is a little bit bad too, because if you cannot absorb what is not there, which was possible in the past, it is a little bit better. But you already see we're not really locking down anything, to be honest. So like we're kind of trying to do chip damage, but he's not really getting the proper lockdown in, and I'm on 70 accuracy, so that's not really that much. So I think with this hit, we should probably be able to take it out. Okay, that's on a death break and an attack buff, you're definitely dealing a lot more damage. So that's definitely the moment that you're kind of aiming for, where you actually suddenly see is like, okay, now we see damage spike because we're hitting on that death break, and then suddenly things are like super dead. So that's definitely the thing that I think he's more of a crit damage unit rather than just a full-on crit rate, additional damage, artifact unit. And then on Siege, his Bruiser fight doesn't seem that bad, but I could definitely still see a lot of issues where even in his Bruiser fight, he could potentially have a bad matchup where he just gets targeted a lot. But if he doesn't get targeted, he is a decent unit at it. Also over there, we did not really land too much. So over here, if we get this skill in, yeah, that's where we kind of see the damage flying in. And that's the main thing that you need. You kind of need a death break because you have that attack buff. Having attack buff makes it where your death break starts dealing, or you hitting on a death break starts dealing a lot more damage. And that's the main thing that you're aiming for. But I'm still not a big fan of this 3 to 5 hits. If it was 2 to 5 hits even. So that's a multiplier of the chance of you having 2.5 times as much value out of your skill 1. And for him, it's even way more than his brothers because his passive is also based on his skill 1 of how many times you hit. So he has too much, like his skill 1 could be a value of 100 or could be a value of 250 for both damage output, strips, and pushbacks and absorbs, which I think is too much RNG for being like one turn you take 100% and the other turn you take a 250% chance. Plus additional turns, you could take like 500% or just 200%, which that is for me personally a little bit too much. So if they would lower those numbers, I definitely do think he has potential. I definitely do like his kit, but he's a little bit too RNG for my liking, and therefore I would not really recommend to play him just yet. But I definitely would say he has potential in the future if they up this skill 1, because I think even for the light one, which is arguably the strongest of the family, I do think that his value could be a lot better if also the skill 1 is just buffed a little bit, and it would not make him crazy OP, neither for any of the other families. So I think they're due for a little bit of a buff on the skill 1, but that might happen in about 3 months. Because it's Countess, you never know, or even 5 months, you never know. Balance patches ain't come that often, especially not for new units. Well guys, thanks so much for watching for this one. See you as always in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.